Now, this session, session 16, is called Creating Memories, and I think obviously carries on very, very beautifully and neatly from the last session. The first presenter is MJ Corey, and the title of this paper is Which City is Kim Kardashian? An Introduction. MJ Corey is the author behind the social media presence Kardashian_colloquium. She received her master's in non-fiction writing as well as counselling psychology from Columbia University. She's interested in psychoanalysis, postmodernism, media theory, and simulation theory. Her work has appeared in many places, including Killing the Buddha, Entropy, and The Rumpus. So welcome, MJ, and I will hand over to you.
I guess we're presenting our video essay about Las Vegas. If the Kardashians were a city, I think that they would be the city of Las Vegas. I kind of developed this theory when I read Learning from Las Vegas, which is a book of architectural theory from the 60s, and kind of coined the idea of the postmodernism of Vegas, the inherent postmodernism of the city. And now I think that if you want to understand the Kardashians, you can look at the history of Vegas and theories around Vegas as a city. And my sister is a video producer, and I said, let's collaborate on a project.
Mm-hmm. So we filmed the essay and about like in pieces over the course of about a month.
Yes.
Yeah.
We wanted to finish it in time for Kimposium. So this is an imperfect project, yes, made with enthusiasm.
It's very DIY, very emblematic of our sisterhood.
Yes.
And you know, I think putting it in like a visual language was like perfect for the subject matter. And as Michelle always quotes, is it McLuhan? Medium is the message.
Yeah.
Yeah. The medium is the message. So that's why we wanted to put it in video form.
Yes.
And should we show the trailer and then we could talk about it?
One more thing I want to say is the medium is the message. We wanted to have a broad range of multimedia in the video essay. So we talked to people on the streets of Vegas, and then we kind of expanded that to then people in New York and just around. And then we talked to some more formal academics as well. So we wanted there to be kind of a marriage of that highbrow and then like the everyday that the Kardashians are so good at straddling as well. So we're here to share the trailer. The full thing will be done and ready and posted on Monday, the 20th. And this coming Monday on the Kardashian Colloquium YouTube. One thing we should also mention, I guess this would be the right moment to share it, is this video essay is kind of like the premiere of the Kardashian Colloquium YouTube. And soon we'll also be starting a web series inspired by the account. So it's going to be called Between Two Salads, and we're going to interview very interesting figures of the social media landscape about this weird world we live in. So without further ado,
let's get this going.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about the woman on the street while I get this up?
Okay, yeah. So one thing we noticed when we were talking to people on the street, we call it our Woman on the Street segment, is a few things. When we were in Vegas, we asked people their favorite Kardashians. What I found running my account is that people tend to be hard on Khloe in the comments and kind of like Kylie, like Kim overall, if we're talking about attitudes about different members of the family. On the street in person, we noticed a real trend. People did not like Kylie. People were very pro Khloe. I don't know what that was about, but it was something we noticed. It was kind of remarkable. And then another thing we noticed is for those who didn't want to engage in discourse about the Kardashians, my sister called it a fight, flight, or freeze response, which of course we all know in terms of like psychology, but people seem to have that response to hearing about the Kardashians.
For sure.
There were people that pretended they'd never heard of the Kardashians. There's a moment that you'll see in the trailer where, well, you'll see. And there's something threatening about them even coming up conversationally for certain people that was really interesting.
For sure.
Yeah.
And another form comment, and then we'll actually show you the trailer, is we also wanted to do, in addition to mixed media, a mixture of kind of the high and low of like, we talked to two great academics, but also then just going on the street and seeing what, you know, everyone thinks, just
Yes.
us, you know, the people who we live around.
Are consuming the Kardashians, whether they want to or not.
So now, truly, without
It's the
further
beginning.
ado,
Yes.
let's do it. Okay, can everyone see this? Can everyone see my screen?
I saw a nod.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
And
Guys.
you'll also find that a conversation with Pia, who presented yesterday, is on the YouTube. That was a fun convo.
Yes, so this is the YouTube that you will see.
Logo made by Pia.
Yes. All right, here we go.
If the Kardashians were a city, which city would they be? Why might we wonder this?
The world is now a global village.
Like it or not, they are almost like a capital city of the global village that we all live in today. What we buy, what we eat, what we build, how we socialize, how we get around. Deep data about the world can be found from cities. Los Angeles is aware of this reputation, just as the Kardashians are aware of their own cultural roles.
My name is Kim Kardashian. Yeah. And Daddy is Kanye West. And Daddy is a singer, performer, artiste. Mommy has so many talents I can't even begin to name them.
Screens, TVs, phones, whatever devices are the main mediums through which we experience Kim and the rest of her family. But in the streets of New York, spectacle is IRL, and it is to be expected. I'm not saying that the robbery was staged, but I am saying that experiencing a scandal while in town contributes to the mythology of her journey, stamping fashion definitively onto her brand and its in-progress history.
It was not only that the great lady could be a Parisienne, but courtesan could, a fashion professional, even a poor little grisette could. Anyone who aspired to become a Parisian could hope to do so.
I'm an architect and a city planner, and every time I tell people I started with Vegas, it used to raise some eyebrows.
What are your takes on the Kardashians?
Oh, Scott, this is the street. I like Scott, this is
Everyone has a take on them. There's so much going on with their brand that, like, there's that take. There's a really valid take here. Yeah, you hear that valid take. There's your take.
Why Las Vegas? Why did I choose this place to look at this kind of addiction to media and screens? So it's both a model for America and what it is, and at the same time, it's an extreme, sort of an exemplar of our culture.
What is your take on the Kardashians?
I'm out of here.
We're done.
Thank you so much. I cannot wait for Monday. Can't wait to see the whole thing. Can't wait to see the new YouTube channel. Congratulations, really wonderful. And what a beautiful little presentation. I just loved it. I think we have a lot to say about your background. It is a kind of shade of beige right now, pinky beige. Yeah, I don't know if you heard the presentation all about beige that we've just had. Was really, really brilliant. Thank you. I think everyone has loved that just as much as I have. We're going to, we have two more papers in this session, and then we will, I hope, have time for questions of all the presenters at the end of the session. And of course, then we have one more final presentation, which is that one that Michelle mentioned there with her and Natalie Franklin coming up at 5 p.m. So let's go straight on to Cynthia Meyers. And, I've just, here we are. So Cynthia's paper is titled The Kardashians as a Family Brand. Cynthia is the author of A Word from Our Sponsor, Ad Men, Advertising and the Golden Age of Radio, as well as articles about advertising and media in Journal of American History, Cinema Journal, American Journalism, and others. She's a professor of communication, fine art and media at the College of Mount St. Vincent in New York City. Oh, perfect. So I will hand over to you.
Super. Super. So now I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I'm really thrilled to join my very first Kimposium. I'm sorry I missed the first one, and I look forward to future sequels. Today I'm talking about the Kardashians as a family brand, and I should really amend this to be the Kardashians as the Kardashian Jenners as a family brand. So what do I mean by family brand? They're members of a family who become characters in entertainment formats. They build a recognizable identity as a family, and then they commercialize that identification. So in other words, they appeal to audiences by being members of a family rather than being individual stars. And the family has its own star image. So they commercialize the identification first by endorsing brands. You're very familiar, I'm sure, with the history of how the Kardashians have endorsed other people's products like Skechers, like all sorts of weight loss products, and yeah, lots of weight loss, vitamins and hair products and the like. And of course, this doesn't always go off well. Kendall, for example, endorsed Pepsi, and the commercial was so badly received, it was taken offline almost immediately. So anyway, that's sort of the first stage of commercialization. The second stage of commercialization is their own product line. So of course, as you are familiar with, all of the Kardashians have their own product lines of various, fashion, makeup, cosmetics, home goods, and probably the most successful product line that's coming out of the Kardashian-Jenner empire is the Kylie line, and they like to brag that she's a billionaire, which may or may not be true. So their willingness to, then this is all connected in with media products and media output and all sorts of media that their audiences can consume. So in addition to their television show, they've put out all sorts of apps and games. They produce just tons and tons of social media content so that their audiences, don't have to wait for the television episodes, and all sorts of ancillary content and spin-offs. So there's just sort of a nonstop barrage of media that's also designed to cross-promote all of the brands that they're promoting and all the merchandise that they're trying to sell. So their willingness to commercialize their celebrity is exactly what a lot of their detractors criticize them for. But I'm here to say that their effort to commercialize their celebrity is not a bug, but a feature. It's a central purpose of a family brand. And what I'm going to talk about today, actually, is how the Kardashians are neither the first family to do this, nor the last. They're one of many family brands in the history of entertainment to sell products and commercialize their appeal to their audiences. So this goes back forever, I assume. But for example, in the vaudeville era, which was live entertainment, there were lots of family acts. So Judy Garland was a member of a Singing Sisters act, and Gene Kelly is here with the Dancing Kellys. They were called themselves the Five Kellys, and they did a dance act. And so appealing to audiences by presenting a family together was a really common strategy. It was a way of making the audiences feel more connected to the performers and feel like they were seeing something authentic about this family and their bonds with each other. One of the most successful family brands of the 20th century were the Nelsons, and I want to talk about them for a few minutes. And as I talk about them, I want to ask you to think about parallels that you might notice in the rise of the Nelson family brand and the rise of the Kardashian-Jenner family brand. The Nelsons were led by Ozzie Nelson and his wife Harriet, and they had two sons, David and Ricky, who was the youngest. They're most famous for their television show on American television, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, which was broadcast from 1951 to 1966. It's now remembered as one of the quintessential kind of anodyne, kind of domestic American sitcoms showing this idealized white American suburban life. So that's how most of us think of it. But the Nelsons' pathway to stardom and family brand actually started in the 30s. Ozzy was a band leader, and popular music back then was predicated on live bands traveling around the country, playing whatever the popular songs were for audiences who then danced in the venue. So Ozzy realized that in order to get more gigs, he needed to have a little sex appeal. So he hired a woman singer to front the band, and Harriet, and he soon married her, and they became a couple, and they were touring around. And he also realized that a lot of the other bands were sort of more musically talented, more musically innovative. And he realized that he couldn't really compete with some of these famous big bands. So he and Harriet started doing little sketches in between the musical numbers. They would make little jokes about their domestic married life. They would tease each other. And these little comedy sketches then made them very popular with audiences. And it got them invited on national network radio. And so they were featured on a number of, sponsored radio shows throughout the 1930s. They do a musical number, and they do one of these little kind of comedy joke sketches in between. Now, Ozzy Nelson then parlayed this into getting his own radio show on ABC. And what he did was he pitched the show as a show about his family. Since he and Harriet had been talking about themselves as a couple for quite a while, he decided to add his sons. And then this is the important part. He wanted his sons to play themselves as children. So the radio show then this was a live radio show, and the kids would play themselves, and they're all reading scripts. And what he claimed to do was that he was writing the scripts about their family life based on actual events that happened during their family life. So he was claiming that even though this was a scripted show, it was performed by the people who were experiencing these things, and it was performed by the actual children, their actual sons. Now, this is an appeal to authenticity that I think we can also find in the Kardashians, which in the television show is actually the reverse. None of the dialogue is officially scripted. The Kardashians are not reading off of a script, and nobody's handed them a script to read. And this is part of the appeal to the authenticity, is that you see them playing themselves and presumably speaking for themselves and presumably presenting some sort of authentic version of themselves. But as I think all of us know, the program was highly produced and highly structured. Plot lines were, planned in advance and so on. So instead of the dialogue being scripted, it's just unscripted, but it's essentially making the same appeal that we're watching the actual family sort of perform their actual family interactions, just in a slightly different production mode. So this radio show was so popular in the late 1940s that when television comes along in the early 1950s, Ozzy is like, okay, well, can we make this transition? Can the family brand make it into television? And so he uses yet another form of media, in this case, film. And as you can see, I hope, at the top of the poster, it's radio's favorite family in their very first screen comedy. And it's called Here Comes the Nelsons. And yes, Rock Hudson was actually in it. And no, it's not a very good film. But if you're curious, you can find it. And it was basically a screen test. And what he was doing was he was trying to see if his family looked good on screen, because their audiences, their fans, had really only heard their voices on the air. And he also wanted to see, if his kids could, pull it off, if they could act or not. And I have to say, actually, that Harriet wasn't that great a singer, and his kids aren't that great actors. But nonetheless, this was seen as successful. So they moved into television, and this program was on television from 1951 to 1966. And I just want to point out that the title, The Adventures of Ozzy and Harriet, was tongue-in-cheek, and people don't understand that today. The premise of the program was that Ozzy and Harriet had been well-known music stars, had been well-known big band, performers, and they'd been touring, for over a decade and a half. And the premise of the show was that they were finally going to settle down into more normal, suburban life. And it was a fish out of water premise that Ozzie and Harriet didn't know how to live in a suburban house. They'd always lived in hotels. They'd always had, the housekeepers in hotels that washed the towels. And now all of a sudden they both had to adjust to living in a house and kind of living in this more normal life. Now, so the adventures were, their adventures in suburbia, essentially. One of the other aspects of this is that they made sure that their home on the television show was exactly the same as their home in real life. It was the same layout, and the actual house that they lived in Los Angeles was the exterior that was shown at the opening of the show. And this was a very aspirational image, of a large white suburban home, and obviously a white neighborhood. So they had lots of sponsors. So each sponsor was a single sponsor at one time. So they had Aunt Jemima Pancakes for a while, in which they would eat pancakes during the show. Coca-Cola sponsored them for a while. Hot Point was an appliance company that sponsored them for a while. And not only do you see the family here among the logo for the brand, but Ozzie made sure that the Hot Point appliances appeared in the program, and that Harriet would demonstrate these appliances. Now, Harriet is somebody who was born into a vaudevillian family, had been a singer, a dancer, and a nightclub singer her entire life. She liked to smoke and drink. And yet on the program, in which she was ostensibly playing herself as a housewife, she was playing a character. And this character was, the devoted housewife who was in the kitchen most of the time, demonstrating the value of appliances like these Hot Point appliances. So I want to talk a little bit about when the Kodak company sponsored them. And as you know, Kodak, I hope you know, was a camera and film company. And of course, the brand name was integrated throughout the show. And I'm going to talk about that for a little bit. And the family then was used in print advertising. And I just want you to notice that the whole goal of the advertising was to connect this family brand, that is this happy family, this aspirational family, with Kodak brand. So we have all these images of the family doing fun things together, bonding with each other. And the Nelsons, in other words, were demonstrating to audiences, this is how you have fun as a family, and this is how you use this product. So they also did cast commercials. So cast commercials when the cast of a TV show was in the commercial itself. And what I think is very interesting for me about this is that Ozzie and Harriet are playing themselves in the commercial. And for the audience, it almost feels like they're still watching the program. So the commercial takes place, within the set of the house. So it looks like they're at home being themselves, and they're trying to explain to audiences why they should buy this Kodak movie camera. And I'm going to play it for you and just take a note of some of the gender and technology things that come up in it.
Tonight, we've asked Harriet to tell us something about her own personal movie camera.
Yes, it's called the Kodak Medallion 8. I like it because it's easy to carry, it's very good looking, and it's easy to use. Now, I'm no expert, but watch. To load it, you drop in the film and click it shut. See? And it makes wonderful movies. We've taken lots of movies of David and Ricky over the years. It's a movie record of our family, and it's one of the nicest things we own. Right now, with the holiday season coming up...
Pardon me, Harriet. Men, buy your wife a Medallion 8 of her own. It's ideal to borrow for fishing, camping, football.
Well, in between, I enjoy my Medallion very much. I think you will, too.
See the Medallion 8 movie camera at your Kodak dealers. It's only $11 down. And also see the 3-lens Medallion turret model. They're made by Kodak, so you know they're good.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. So obviously the ad is aimed at housewives, and it's designed to, it's so easy, even a housewife can use it, right? But you'll notice that she talks about how it's making a record of the family. And this was a major advertising goal of the Kodak company, was to convince people to try these new technologies in order to build and maintain these family bonds. And Ozzie and Harriet were clearly representing this kind of aspirational, idealized version of the family. So in addition to all of this, so Ozzie Nelson not only was producing and directing the show, and not only was he scripting all sorts of scenes and lines where he incorporated cameras and photo taking in the program itself. And this was something Kodak demanded. So this is a bad screenshot, I apologize, but this is Harriet handing a brownie Kodak camera to a neighbor child who wants to take a picture of a pony. So these storylines about the importance of photography in American family life were integrated regularly in all the program episodes. So I hope that it's already occurring to you how in the Kardashians, they regularly did this kind of product integration, brand integration, cross promotion, all the way through their television show and all of their social media, kind of very consistently, just as the Nelsons had done in a more, I would say, straightforward way, perhaps, in the past. So in addition to all of this, Ozzie's character on the show was kind of somebody who was bumbling. He'd fall over the ottoman in the living room. He couldn't catch a fish. But behind the scenes, he was the Kris Jenner of his day. I think about this a lot. He was running his entire family's entertainment careers. And again, these were intermediate careers. They'd been very successful in live music performance, recorded music, radio and television. And when his youngest son, Rick Nelson, showed an interest in rock and roll music in the mid-50s, Ozzie encouraged it. And in fact, even though Ozzie was well known as a big band leader, and generationally, people of his age thought rock and roll was, a terrible, evil, destructive, immoral kind of music, Ozzie realized that it was the next big thing. And so he decided to build Rick's career. And he did that by having Rick perform a song, in this case, Traveling Man, on the television program, which again was a very popular television program back when there were only 3 networks. And so millions of people saw Rick Nelson perform this song as part of a television show. And this launched Rick Nelson's recording career. Ozzie made sure he got, a good recording contract and a good touring deal. And then pretty soon, Rick Nelson had become one of the top white rock and roll acts in the late 50s and into the 60s. And by the way, his sons actually went on and became music acts as well. So it ran in the family. So in other words, I'm trying to make this argument that when you have a family brand, part of how you exploit it is you don't stick with just one form of media. So the descendants of the Nelsons can also be found all over YouTube. And there are lots and lots and lots of YouTube channels of family brands. There are all sorts of families. They might have started by posting home videos, but now many of them post very professionally produced videos. Some of them trying to look as if it's still amateur, but it's a very edited, produced kind of version of supposedly the real life of the family. I have noticed that a lot of my students watch these family channels instead of watching, a traditional television sitcom. So they're watching these kind of reality show versions of family life. The Family Fun Pack is just one of these many channels. And in addition to doing all sorts of brand endorsements and product placements, they of course also have their own merchandise lines. And another very successful one is the Ace family. And they likewise sell lots and lots of merchandise. And just like the Kardashians, a lot of the merchandise also cross promotes the media content. So you can buy a t-shirt that says watching the Ace family. So and all of these, they're predicated also on the kids being charming and saying the darndest things. And also it's predicated on this idea that this is safe content, right? This is not scary content. There's no murders going on. There's no assaults. This is all about families having fun together. So in other words, I'm arguing that the Kardashians are part of this long tradition of family brands. And what I'd like to do to finish up is just show you the opening clip for each of these 3 programs. And I want you to just notice the similarities between each of them. In each one, each character is shown individually and introduced to the audience. In each one, we get some sense of who that character is. And in each one, we see something about the bonding of the family and the aspirational lifestyle that they lead.
Kodak Company is happy to bring you America's favorite family, the Nelsons, Ozzie, Harriet, David, and Ricky. They like to go places, enjoy happy times together, and they know that good times are picture time.
You got that right. Okay. And here's the opening to the first season of the Kardashians. And I want to note that they're satirizing the Ozzie and Harriet opening.
All right, we're ready.
No.
I need someone to make me laugh.
Where's Kim? Kim is always late. I'm here. Get out of her way. Stop. Jealous.
Stop! That's it, we're done.
Okay. And then finally, I want to show you the
With a Capital
I'm
One
sorry.
Venture card, you were an unlimited double.
Sorry about that. And then I want to show you the Ace family. And I want you to think about, they're no longer satirizing it. They're absolutely serious about showing it their lifestyle.
For you, I would do anything. Oh, for you, anything. Go, whatever you need, as long as you're mine. Whatever you want for the rest of your life. Whatever you like. Whatever you like. Whatever you need, you're one of a kind. Whatever you want, girl, I'm never to ride. Whatever you like. Whatever you like.
Sorry. Okay, so I would just to end, these families' ability to commercialize their appeal through brand endorsements and product lines will no doubt survive the end of the Kardashian television show. And as we look forward to future family brands, I'm sure that this strategy will continue into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. That was like a sort of X-ray or an archaeological dig or a look into the Kardashians' DNA or their media DNA. So yeah, that was amazing. Thank you. We will have time for questions at the end. We've got one more paper in this session. So this is Laura Henderson Child. The paper is called "These Pics Bring Back So Many Memories, a Selfish Archive." And you'll see that I have put my selfish book there ready for everyone to look at. So Laura Henderson Child is a writer and a teacher, originally from Birmingham in the UK. While studying at Oxford, she became interested in the literary form of the modern celebrity. Now she's worried about who will keep the sinks in the Kim-Ye divorce. I think lots of people have wondered that. We know who keeps them now. She'd like to thank Ruth Ramsden Carelsey, without whom this paper would not exist. Okay, so Laura, off you go.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm so excited to be at the Kimposium alongside some of my favourite connoisseurs. I'm Laura Henderson Child. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a writer and a teacher. And this presentation is a rethinking of some work I did during my undergraduate degree. And I wrote my thesis on the literary form of the modern celebrity, and specifically the relationship between Kim Kardashian West and the punk writer and the artist Kathy Acker. Cool. So during this presentation, I'm going to offer a close reading of Selfish. I think it's an often forgotten part of Kim's brand and her work. So it's an autobiography documenting her life between 2006 and 2014 by way of the selfie. Each page of the text consists of one selfie and a short caption. Some of them are just pictures. Alongside this close reading, I'll be thinking about Selfish's role within Kim's expansive body of work and her general kind of paratextual relationship with autobiography and with memory. And I'll be arguing that literary theory and thinking of ourselves as readers provides a rewarding lens through which to think about Kim and to think about the family. So Selfish is a personal archive. It points outwards to the rest of Kim's oeuvre and insists on being a bounded entity as well. And thus it sort of typifies the way in which she demanded to be read in the early to mid 2010s. So this presentation is going to explore the text's temporality, the intimacy it creates with its reading public, and its structural fixation with Kanye West. And then I'm going to go on to question the text's significance 6 years after publication. So firstly, I want to introduce the theory with which I'll be working throughout this presentation. So crucial to my reading will be Warner's theories of the public and Levine's writing on form. So Michael Warner's 2002 text Publics and Counterpublics identifies 3 uses of the term public. 1, a social totality, 2, a physical audience in bounded space, and 3, one that comes into being in relation to texts. So I'll be thinking about the latter. And in reference to the latter, he writes that the public is a space of discourse organised by nothing other than discourse itself. It exists by virtue of being addressed. He later writes that all publics are intertextual, even intergeneric. And I think that Warner here gives us a really helpful language to examine and kind of transmogrify the stale liberal idea that Kim is famous for being famous. Of course she is, but this isn't down to a passive vacuity, but a genius and distinctly literary methodology of celebrity, whereby multiple acts, events, and narratives combine to create our experience of Kim. So to put that very plainly, we don't read Kim as one entity. We, as members and participants of her public, encounter her through Keeping Up with the Kardashians and its multiple spin-offs, on social media, through her celebrity endorsements, through Selfish, through Kanye's discography, and if we're lucky, maybe even in real life. And our interest in her is sustained by the infinite intertextuality of her public. Caroline Levine's ideas in her 2015 text, Whole Rhythm Hierarchy Network, lend themselves really well to this discussion, I think. She argues in favour of broadening our definition of form to include social arrangements, to dissolve the troubling gap between the form of the literary text and its content and context. So Kim's different narratives circulated across contrasting forms orbit one another before colliding to create climax. I think Warner and Levine give us a really helpful framework and language with which to unpack Kim's literary form. So now I want to take a second to locate us in Selfish's historical context. So it was published in May 2015. So it's the mid-2010s, a decade that's characterised by the growth and sprawl of social media networks that invited multi-temporal reading experiences at the expense of continuous narrative. In terms of Kim's own context, she was publicly very happily married to Kanye, and unbeknownst to us, she was 2 months pregnant with Saint. Caitlyn had just come out on TV as a trans woman, and Courtney and Scott were very close to calling it a day. And I think what's really important to note is that Kim was starting to lean into the familial role she enjoyed for the latter half of the 2010s, which was being the kind of steely, calm rock for the other, more outwardly chaotic members of the family. So like Kim herself, at this point in her life, Selfish enjoys a really calm and decidedly chronological position in an otherwise manic Kardashian temporality. So as I began to discuss earlier, everything in the Kardashian universe is paratext. And the climax is created not by the friction within stories, but by the friction between them. Natasha Stagg wrote in her 2019 essay collection, Sleeveless, that time for the family moves sideways, not forwards, which I think is really wonderful. And plot for them forms and moves horizontally. So Selfish intercepts the temporal chaos of the 2010s and Kim's intertextuality through a decided commitment to linearity. So the text is chronological. Each year between 2006 and 2014, as you can see, is given a chapter, which feels quite unsettling as a reader, given that Kim's public of the 2010s was invited to approach her calendar either through episodes and seasons of TV or a blizzard of online paratexts. And then Kim goes on to use this text to fashion her own personal memory space. And in fact, the word memory kind of resounds through the captions of the selfies. So she writes next to herself, next to a picture of herself from 2007, she writes, "I can look at any photo of myself and I can tell where I was and who I was with. Photos are memories to me. As soon as I see an image, all the details of the day or moment come alive for me." And I'll just show you some more of the pictures now. So as the selfies progress throughout the book and Kim's makeup improves almost in correlation with the photograph quality, her increasing influential public self becomes tied to technology and her body becomes a metonym for the evolution of the 2010 celebrity. So the Kim at the start of the book is the naive companion of Paris, and the Kim at the end of the book is a global superstar. Now I would like to think about the text structured intimacy. I think it presents a search for a softness that predates the toughness of the Kim we now know, the toughness of Skims and the toughness of law school, etc. So the unknown reader of Selfish is cast as Kim's confidant by the captions that sit alongside each photograph. The captions are written in a font that's made to look like her own handwriting. And there are endearing moments of vulnerability. We see Kim starstruck meeting J-Lo, Kim with terrible sunburn from her sunglasses, Kim eating instant noodles after an award show. And in the vast majority of the photos, and we will come back to this idea later, Kim is alone. On the spine of the book, the author's name is, and it's again in her own handwriting, it's just listed as Kim, which is really unusual because her surnames have always been such an important part of her identity and her branding. But again, this creates the impression of intimacy. And I think it feels worth noting that Kim is orally and vocally softer and less plosive without the Kardashian West. So a selfie can contain infinite untruths. If it's taken in the front camera, it might not be taken by the subject themselves, and it can be much more aesthetically orchestrated than we're led to believe. But in Selfish and classic Kim style, she takes this performance a step further. So lots of the images capture her when she's having her makeup done just before she's going to a party or she's going to an event or something. It's a performance that takes place on what Douglas and McDonnell have called a side performance stage, which appears as an authentic backstage, which is in actuality a secondary performance zone. So the more a reader knows of Kim's life already, the more Selfish rewards them, I think. Countless moments in the text are tethered to her televisual brand, which means that the diligent reader or the diligent fan is allowed to see the same event reenacted from slightly different angles. The bounded text points constantly outside itself and toward other parts of Kim's body of work. And actually the seed of the text inception is planted elsewhere in her body of work. It's planted in an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians called A Thailand Vacation. It's a two-parter where Kim and Steph Shep are taking selfies to make a book as a gift to Kanye. And this episode came out in 2014, so a year before the book was published. And in the episode, Brody, Jenna asks whether Kim plans on making any of the photos public. And she replies very coyly, yeah, I might share some of them. And then in Selfish, there's a 20-page spread of Thailand selfies. So when we place these two events alongside each other, the literary and the televisual, they're both imbued with a greater sense of intimacy. We feel like we know Kim better. And as ever, Kim harnesses the potentials and the limits of each material within her continuous performance. I think this is a really great example of what Levine called the disruptive power of forms being nested inside one another, and how Kardashian allows plot and climax to form horizontally. When I was writing this presentation, I tried really hard to find a word to capture the feeling of Selfish, and I really struggled. I would say that as with a lot of things in the Kardashian universe, it possesses tremendous organizing power and potential, but in material and practical terms, it's slightly unsatisfying. There is something moving about it, but only in a very gentle sense. And there are no confessions and there is no conflict. And it led me to think about how, as a Kardashian reader and follower, I find myself having my most visceral reactions to the family, not in what they do, but in what they leave unsaid. So the closest I could get to describing how Selfish felt is that there's a blankness to it. So physically, there's a stillness to reading the book. There has to be, because the pages themselves are really heavy and there are 500 of them. You're invited to read the words in her hypnotic Calabasas lilt because they're written in her handwriting and in her distinctive vernacular. Loads of them say "you guys" at the start or the end. And it's much thicker and much physically more attention-seeking than it needs to be. So each page has only one picture and one caption, which almost mimics the viewing experience on a mobile phone. I think it feels really important to consider these material and practical encounters with the text, because Kardashian fans and readers are deprived of material encounters with her, not her products, but actually her, because generally we're only exposed to her digitally. Even though her branding is all about the body, I think that's an interesting attention. And it got me thinking about when people, I don't know if people remember this, when everyone used to collect the Dash water bottles with the sisters' faces on, because those opportunities feel kind of few and far between, I think. So the 500-page length does not invite a continuous novelistic reading experience, because it would be too long and, quite frankly, a bit too boring. But it acts as a token of participation in Kim's public, whether this is ironic or not. The reader looks at endless, often very similar pictures of Kim, and the captions are absurdly literal, like "I look naked, but I'm wearing a strapless dress." In the next part of this presentation, the final part, I want to think about everything we've discussed in action. So selfish's temporality, its relationship to its paratext, its search for intimacy, its loneliness, and its blankness. And I want to do this through an examination of the text's marriage plot. So Selfish is an old-fashioned story because the protagonist marries the man of her dreams, and then the text ends very abruptly. This is the final photograph of Selfish. It's of Kim and Kanye's hands on their wedding day, and it's crossed over her freshly double-barreled name. It's the first time that our gaze is diverted away from the face we've been looking at this whole time, almost as if that's something that's reserved only for the privacy of her relationship with Kanye. And her newly completed self is represented by her newly extended name. And so it suggests that finding a husband is a kind of conclusion of posting selfies on the internet. And the final photograph has, I think, one of the longest captions in Selfish, and part of it reads, "I'm so grateful to everyone who shared this journey with us. I couldn't have dreamt for a more perfect husband." And it seems like she's thanking and bidding farewell to her wedding guests, but also her readers, who followed her until she was able to secure monogamous happiness with West. Laura Bennett in Slate has written, "The promise of Kanye looms over Selfish long before he arrives, and it helps to propel the book's non-existent plot." What I think is really interesting is that the text omits any of Kim's other relationships between 2006 and 2014. Most notably, Chris Humphries, to whom Kim was married for 72 days in 2011, is absent, and their relationship is even undone. So in the 2011 chapter, there are pictures taken with and for Kanye, and there are these birthday pictures of them together. Now his birthday is in June, and supposedly in 2011, Kim and Chris Humphries were together. Her relationship with Kanye becomes an uncorrupted whole, and she harnesses the power of a contained, still, back to front book. But her marriage to Humphries is kept elsewhere in her body of work. It's confined to the second season of Kourtney and Kim Take New York. And I was thinking earlier about what MJ was saying about cities, and it feels fitting that her marriage to Chris Humphries becomes confined to New York, because that's a city where I think especially 10 years ago, she felt very out of place. So here I want to introduce Warner's idea of the counter-public, which is defined by its tension with a larger public. Discussion within it is understood to contravene the rules at large, and it becomes structured by alternative dispositions or protocols. I think that Selfish and the second season of Kourtney and Kim Take New York have a counter-public relationship, and this friction between them intensifies the organising power of both. And this is a device that we know Kim uses constantly, but I think this is a really good large-scale example. So the first episode of the season, it's called The Honeymoon is Over. It begins with a montage of TV news anchors speculating on the shock divorce between Kim and Chris. And it speeds up and up and up and then slows down, and it ends on Kim's haunting line. "First and foremost, I have to follow my heart." And then it rewinds, and the season goes on to unfold their tragic divorce plot. The season initially implicates Kim after this introduction. She's returning from her honeymoon in a forward-oriented promise of happiness. But as it progresses, she becomes stripped of the facets of the good life. So she and Humphries fail to agree on where to build a home. And in the third episode, the possibility of them having children is raised and then dismissed. Sarah Ahmed writes in Happy Futures, Perhaps. She writes that if objects provide a means for making us happy, then in directing ourselves toward them, we are aiming toward a happiness that is presumed to follow. But here, Kardashian latches onto the promise of a happiness that never actually arrives. She latches onto marriage and monogamy, and she becomes what Ahmed calls an affect alien, because she's at odds with those around her when she stops experiencing pleasure from these things that are supposed to make her happy. In the 7th episode, Kim is coming back with Kris Jenner from a trip to Dubai, and Kris Jenner asks her, "Are you happy to go back to your husband?" And Kim says, "Not really." And Kris replies, "Kim, that's not normal." And then in this scene, which we all know so well, Kim sobs, "I think I feel good that I met this guy from Minnesota, and I feel awful that I made him move out here and change his whole life, and I feel bad for him. I feel sad. I feel bad for the guy. He fell in love with me and I fell in love with him, but now my feelings have changed. You don't think I feel bad that I invited all these people to this huge wedding and I flew everyone out? At 30 years old, I thought I'd be married with kids, and I'm not, and you don't think that I feel bad?" The actual events of her life snag on the promised sequential tropes of romance. Earlier in the scene, Chloe tells Kim on the phone that this wasn't your fairy tale, and Kim's speech here keeps jarring on the word bad. She starts telling this recognizable love plot. She says, I met this guy, but she's unable to see it through and finish the story. So back to Selfish. So instead of embracing her performance of the claims made in Ahmed's countercultural theorization, Kardashian constructs for herself a whole, improved version of the marriage plot in Selfish. It's a glossy new happily ever after. It undoes any of the radical and counter-public potential of the 72-day marriage, which actually illustrates the false promise of heteronormative monogamy. Levine writes that we cannot do without bounded holes in their power to hold things together. Kim's public, I think, is formed by a circulation of bounded holes, complete stories that are united in the fact that they never falter in their commitment to monogamy. Her refusal to acknowledge her own contradictions and flawed philosophies is what sustains her narrative and her brand. She's an endless denier and a rewriter, and continually she's really unsatisfying to experience at surface level, which is what leaves us mining and pining for more. But I think it's this eternal act of digging, an eternal act of reading more deeply, rather than the actual narrative rewards themselves. It's the act that provides satisfaction for the Kardashian scholar. So I'm almost finished. Where are we 6 years later with the relationship at the center of Selfish over? So here I want to come back to the idea of blankness. I think that the blankness of Selfish has something to do with singledom. It's a slow and patient wait for the arrival of Kanye. And the moments where she's alone are the most vulnerable and faintly embarrassing. So her sunburn, her eating noodles, etc. by herself after a night out. But I think one of the most interesting things is how, depending on the reader's vantage point, the tone of this blankness and the singledom can change really dramatically. If we're reading pre the collapse of Kim Ye, it seems naive, girlish, and almost lonely as we anticipate her romantic fulfillment. But since Kim filed for divorce and through lots of her social media and marketing has returned to the noughties aesthetics we see at the start of the book, this blankness seems intentional, as if Kim always knew time would move in circles and land us back where we met her. It ages spectacularly thanks to Kim's incredible ability to say such stupendously vacuous and even camp things, which can be morphed either into earnest expressions of feeling or knowing postmodern moments. Our vantage point now makes it hard not to read Selfish as ingenious postmodern art. It's one of her greatest skills that sets up her narrative strands for multiple possible unravelings. If she was still married to Kanye, it's likely we'd still read the text as a more earnest endeavour. I hope this presentation has shown that literary theory is a uniquely helpful way for thinking about Kim. It seems fitting that she has pioneered the story as a form online. I think I've also begun to arrive at a specific theory of reading Kim and considering how she harnesses the potentials and the limits of individual organising forms to create a kaleidoscopic narrative. However, as I've shown, the blank spaces between these forms are of equal, if not greater, significance. Thank you so much.
Oh, what a whirlwind. Thank you, Laura. Oh my goodness, I feel like we need hours and hours to discuss, but we don't have them. But we do have, 5 minutes or so. So hands up, please. Okay, Paul.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much for those presentations, those papers. They were excellent. Every single one held my attention. And I've come on here a complete, pardon the expression, Kardashian virgin. I was here listening to my friend's paper this morning and decided to stay and listen to everybody else's. I have a question for Cynthia. Sorry, it's a wee bit of a ramble. I was very interested. You were talking about Ozzy and Harriet, which is bang in the era the time researching myself for my thesis. And I'm just thinking about how television and popular media changed in the aspect of direct product placement. I'm thinking of an enduring family other than the Nelsons, which started with a fairly obscure sitcom around 1955 to 1956, starring Jackie Gleason and Audrey Meadows, The Honeymooners. Suddenly popped off the air, but re-emerged, satirized as the Flintstones. And the Flintstones endured. The Pebbles and Bam Bam show, the cartoon stopped, and there was a live action film. And suddenly here we are with the Flintstones in another medium, a very, very successful graphic novel. But in that time, no direct product placement. It seemed to go out of the way that television was presented. And suddenly, here we are with the Kardashians, a celebrity reality TV phenomenon. And there we have direct product placement again. And I wondered if you'd like to talk about that change, that gap, and why suddenly we have direct product placement. I'd be very, very interested to hear your views on that.
Sure. I've actually written a whole book about this. It's called A Word from Our Sponsor. Single sponsorship was when the advertiser controlled the program. And so they, of course, integrated the brand in the program. And the Ozzie Nelson show was a single sponsored show. And so, of course, they were integrating pancakes or refrigerators or cameras into the program. So it was the structure of the sponsorship. And then in the 60s and 70s, single sponsorship went out of style, although the Flintstones actually were sponsored by a cigarette company for a while, and they cut out all the scenes of them smoking and promoting that cigarette brand. So when you have gone back and seen reruns of it, they've cut all that part out. But by the 70s and 80s in the United States, single sponsorship died and ads were just interrupting inside the programs, and the program texts were produced separately from the advertisers. And what has happened is that with a non-linear digital era, audiences are skipping the TV commercials, skipping the interruptions, and instead advertisers feel the need to integrate their products back into the program text. And so reality programs in particular have been spearheading product integration, but tons and tons of scripted shows on television today are full of product placements and brand integrations. And social media influencers are essentially, I like to say, they're either doing the Ozzie and Harriet thing of holding up the product and saying, here, buy this product because I like it. You know, I'm giving you this personal endorsement. Use my promo code down below, or else they're just integrating it into the narrative of their apparently authentic expression to their audiences. So what I see is we're just looping back to these strategies. And that's one reason why I spent all that time looking at some of this older stuff, because it might look old fashioned, but actually we've returned to all of it. And that's because audiences are getting better and better at skipping the ads.
Thank you very much. That's excellent. And sorry for my question being very much a diversion from the main theme of the day, but thank you very much.
Okay, great. So any other questions, any other hands up or questions in the chat? I just have a more of a comment, which is that we've, I think there's way more to discuss in terms of Kardashians and space and place. We've had a couple of papers, you know, about interiors, about what city they would be. We actually haven't had anything about them in Los Angeles. But, you know, I think that could be the whole subject of a whole, you know, probably a day's worth of papers about how space and place work with these media events, media products. They're, you know, we know they're crucially integrated. That's something we need to think a bit more about as Kardashian scholars. And thank you, Laura, for that phrase, which I'll now put in my bio. Are there any questions that any of you would like to ask each other before we wind this session up and go to our final couple of conversations? No?
One thing that I thought was interesting when the Flintstones came up, this is just a real side note, how in the Flintstones, the technology, the tools that are used, like talk back at the Flintstone family. So like, I don't know if they're using like a dinosaur to like hammer something, the dinosaur will be like, hey, like, and kind of be sassy back. And so I think it's interesting that it's already such a postmodern show and self-referential about these family sitcoms, but it shows the tensions between humans and then the tools they use. And the Kardashians really normalize this like fluid merging between the humans and technology, and I've always wanted to explore something with that.
Yeah. So many avenues, so many paths and city streets to walk down with this family. All right, everyone. Well, we are coming to our ultimate or maybe penultimate session, depending how you see it. And this is going to be a conversation between MJ Corey and Natalie Franklin. So it's simply called Kardashian_colloquium and Nori's Black Book, a conversation. And I'm assuming that the vast majority of you are familiar with both of these very famous, what do you call them? They're more than just social media accounts, but let's call them that for the moment. So a couple of quick bios. I'm going to give MJ's again because I know that several people have come in since the last one. So MJ Corey is the author behind the social media presence Kardashian _ colloquium. That's colloquium with a K. She received her master's in nonfiction writing as well as counseling psychology from Columbia University. She's interested in psychoanalysis, postmodernism, media theory, and simulation theory. And her work has appeared in many places, including Killing the Buddha, Entropy, and The Rumpus. And our other presenter now is Natalie Franklin. So Natalie is a California-based writer. Specifically, she authors the massively famous satirical Instagram account called Nori's Black Book. This has been appearing since 2013. And indeed, and I've got little shivers as I say this, Natalie herself was recently featured in an actual season 20 episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So she's met a couple of them, if not more. And here we are at just 1 degree of separation. I'm going to hand over to MJ and to Natalie for the next hour.
Thank you so much for that time, Meredith. And Natalie is just about to join us. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm running late.
No worries. All right. So why don't we start? I made a little outline of things we can talk about. How are you feeling?
I'm just looking at myself because I didn't get a chance to prep and prep.
And how are you feeling?
I feel good. How are you?
You look great.
Cool.
Yes, you do. I love all the purple.
The angle's trash, but you know, we're working with it.
Totally. Well, here's the cool thing. We're actually also filming this conversation as an episode for the upcoming, or parts of it we're going to use for the upcoming web series. So we're all looking at you and the computer, and then beyond there's like a kind of a set to kind of break the fourth wall, Kardashian style for a moment here. So we connected when I was starting my account.
Yes.
And I reached out to Natalie for advice, and out of the goodness of her heart, she just provided advice.
Yeah.
And counsel.
Yeah. Well, was it really advice? Like, okay. Because we had we were on pre-Zoom. We were like on Google.
Yeah.
Hangout, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and your sister. And
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh my God, full circle. Now we're all here together again.
Yeah.
And here's one thing that Natalie said that stuck with me. And then tell me if you remember this, Natalie.
Okay.
You were like, the Kardashians are the cheat code.
Yes, I tell everyone that. Like any product you're trying to sell or any Instagram thing, just do a couple Kardashians every now and then like you'll just get the attention or some attention or something like that. So
yeah,
it's so true.
What do you think that's about?
Just the fascination with them and like how they're always traditionally caught up in scandals and yada, yada, yada. So people are just going to click to see what is going on.
Yeah.
And then of course now nostalgia for like older episodes or older content that are now being turned into memes or TikTok sounds and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like it just gets reproduced.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally. And I've even noticed, I'm curious if you've noticed this too. Well, it gets the engagement, it gets the likes, but even if like you post something that is like posed the way a Kardashian poses or like a makeup contour look that they've popularized, I've noticed it'll get the likes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you like explicitly say Kardashian look from Met or like just aesthetic?
Aesthetic.
Yeah.
Just the aesthetic resonates.
Well, yeah, for sure. Especially with like you're talking about poses, or if you take a certain picture that's Kylie-esque, someone might stop and be like, is that Kylie? Oh no. Okay, let me keep scrolling.
Totally.
Like all her friends, how they all look alike, you know,
Yes.
like Stas and Father Kells and all that shit. So
yeah,
I can see that for sure.
Yeah, that like resonance on social media.
Yeah.
Let me just pull up our little outline here. Okay, so so actually to that point, what makes the show watchable? What are the qualities and cultural forces that make this, what do you think of their power?
I think the beginning, what made the show watchable is that they were women who were so free.
Yeah.
And we'd never seen that before on television.
Yeah.
Like when I say free, like sexually, like they had no problem talking about things specifically in front of their mother. Cause I think a lot of us can't talk like that or even talk to our mothers the way they do. So that's a real fascinating thing.
Yes.
If you remember the first season, they really used the OJ thing as leverage.
Yes.
Like it was always like a Robert Kardashian Sr. type reference. Or like, oh, this reminds me of the OJ trial and our like they we talked the other night, like Chris even went to Robert Kardashian Sr.'s grave one episode. So I think they used their like the only celebrity kind of adjacent thing they had.
Yeah.
But I think that's what makes them watchable. And then after that, their relationships, the high profile relationships really, really behoove them.
Yeah.
Because as we know, we had Lamar was our first like, well, I guess Reggie and then Lamar, and then it just kept getting bigger and bigger from there in relationships. And I think most people are more fascinated in like their coupling, if you will, than them as a people. No shade, but
no, well, I hear that because I think that we are seeing it now with Courtney and Travis, and she's having like, as I made a TikTok where I was like, this is maybe her first main character moment, and it's because she has a love story that is really captivating people.
Travis has definitely made a bang and made Courtney a little bit more interesting. Yeah, because I mean, as much as the fans love Scott doesn't do anything. Like he's not this pop culture fixture, and I think Travis is already that with Blink-182, and then they got together and we're like, holy shit, we love this. Also Courtney is really good with dating white men exclusively, so it's like the first time we've able to get excited about like this pure Caucasian relationship. White love is alive and well, and so I think that's exciting too. Something different. Why am I talking to you? I'm like talking to your sister.
It's like part of fourth wall.
Yeah, it's like something we haven't seen before.
Yeah, true.
So it's really fun to see her live that out with someone and like be lavished and kind of live the lives we've been seeing all the other girls have. And now it's like Courtney's time.
Right. Like post structure of the show, which is really interesting.
Which is strategic on her part, Courtney.
Yeah, totally.
She didn't want the cameras in that. So
she's getting the paparazzi cameras instead. Okay, cheat code. Tell me about making your account. When did it start?
Yeah, let's talk about that. So I loved, if you guys remember Surrey's Burn Book, it used to be really popular on Tumblr. If you're not familiar, it was written in perspective of Surrey Cruz and Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes' daughter. And she would just make fun of all the Hollywood kids. And I thought it was really funny, and I read all the time, and I'm like, I wish I would have created something like this because this is like my alley. Though my only issue with it is very, very like white. Like she'd only talk about like white kids.
Yeah.
I did notice that she did Blue Ivy every now and then, but like I was like, I wonder what like a black version of this would look like. So anyway, cut to North being born, and they had their Babies R Us line. And this is before they were showing North's face. So they put her in like a Babies R Us onesie and just showed her feet. And I remember telling my friend, can you imagine being Northwest and you're in this fucking cheap ass Babies R Us shit? Like she should be in like Prada, Chanel. And so then as I'm talking, my like light bulb, I'm having my Oprah aha moment. And I'm like, oh, this is my moment. I can do this. So she wore a lot of black at the time. Yeah. So I called it Black Book, and they were calling her Nori at the time. They don't do that anymore, but I was like, oh, Nori's Black Book. And then I just thought of ways that I can differentiate myself. Yeah. And I was like, well, maybe because Perez Hilton and Nicole Bitchie were really big back then. I was like, maybe I can have her talking about pop culture. And so I kind of played around with it, and I would talk about Kardashians every now and then. Like, I think I had a big post on Tumblr. I posted something about Chris in overalls. I forgot what I said, but I went to bed and I woke up and it like exploded. And then finally one day someone wrote like, this is really funny, but you should just focus on the Kardashians because there's enough there.
Wait, that's so interesting. And just to clarify, this started on Tumblr?
It started on Tumblr.
I love to think about the changing mediums and how it affected the way we express these different ideas.
So it started on Tumblr. And so I was like, God, that's such a good idea. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to talk about the family. Yeah. And then one day people were like, you should put it on Instagram. You should put it on Instagram. And Instagram wasn't like that back then. Remember they had like character limits and like you couldn't put multiple pictures, no videos. So I was like, there's no point. Like, And so one week, it was a Halloween week, and I was doing extra work, like background work, and I was really bored, and I was like, oh, let me just put it on Instagram, nothing else going on. So I put it on Instagram because I had already had like about 80,000 followers on Tumblr, which is it's big in Tumblr sense.
Yes.
And then I just moved it to Instagram, and then it just grew from there.
So follow.
Yeah.
I can't decide where I want to go if we talk about mediums, because I want to talk to you about TikTok at some point and the speculations we've been kind of making about how that might work. But also I'm kind of interested in what you observe. What are patterns you observe on your account? Like, who are your followers? What do people like?
The gays and the girls.
That makes sense. That tracks.
The gays and the dolls are my fan base, which is kind of like, it's so interesting. When I was on Keeping Up, I thought the hoopers and all that will be in the DMs. No, it's the gays and the girls. And it's like, hey, but yeah, those are the followers.
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of people follow that don't necessarily watch the show or that don't even like them.
Yeah.
I get a lot of that, which is cool.
Same for me too.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I will say I'm lucky in the sense I've never really get any hate comments. Like, some people don't get it. They'll be like, this is so rude. But then like, I can rely on the audience to come in and correct them. Like, I don't have to really get involved in anything.
Yeah.
I think it helped when I exposed myself when I came out as Black. I think it really helped.
Yeah.
My jokes about Dream, a lot of people didn't get it, or they're like, this seems racist. Is it because Black China is Black? And I'm like, no, it's because her and Rob are poor in comparison to Northwest. Of course she's gonna like, but I think when I came out, I don't get those comments as much anymore.
Yeah.
Because they get, oh, okay, never mind. We can't really ding you on that. So yeah, that's pretty much the audience. That it's a nice audience because they know who the Kardashians are. It's not fan or stan.
Yeah.
Stand-up in there. Like, it's not a stan account. And that's I made that quite clear. But yeah, and they're a fun group. The comments are really funny over there.
Yes.
Sometimes I see a comment like, God, I should have thought of that. Yeah, people are so funny. But yeah, or like, I can get in the comments and act like North's responding.
Yeah, I love your responses.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a fun group over there.
Totally. No, people really get what you're doing.
They get it.
For the most part.
Yeah. They get it. Yeah.
And that's like a really good feeling about running an account where there is that enthusiasm, where you're like, I have like some kind of like wavelength with a certain like body of people.
Yeah, and then like in the comments they said always supporting the Dream Kardashian Hope Fund.
Yes, that was a good one.
Yes, the DFHF as it's called. I love shouting that out. I mean, and the good thing is the girls get it. Like, Chloe thinks that's hilarious because, again, none of these people are really poor. Like, on their poorest days would be our best day, so
they can handle it,
right? And so I don't think people understand the people that criticize up top. It's like, but Rob and China are not poor. They're poor in the sense of what North would consider, right?
The scale,
exactly. So yeah, but it's a good time over there.
Totally. There's something about running an account anonymously and then coming out that we've been talking about through the week, interviewing different people, different creators, had a lot of strength in their building by starting off anonymous and then the debut moment.
Yeah. That's interesting you say that. Yeah. So me being anonymous is not an intentional thing. Yeah. If you guys remember, for the youth, Tumblr, it wasn't about who's running the Tumblr. It was about literally the content. Like, people would put poems on there or they would just put porn. And it's like, you know, I remember I followed this site that used to post strictly fights from Bad Girls Club and like fights like in the neighborhoods. And I would just I don't know who ran that, but I was like, this is amazing. So I just started it. I wasn't like, this is NATALIE Franklin and I'm doing this. So when I moved it to Instagram, I followed suit. I just put it over there, and I didn't, my mom's a superstar from a home movie. So, which is a Kanye lyric, by the way. Hopefully people get that.
Yes.
But yeah. And so when it took off, I was like, well, there's no fucking room for me to just pop in, like, what am I going to say? Like, I was like, do I just get on Instagram story one day and be like, hey guys? So I just kind of was like, I was content with never revealing myself. Cause I was like, I would only do it for the right time and the right person, the right audience. Luckily that came along, but like, I was never like, hellbent on like, how am I gonna do a reveal? You know what I mean?
It ended up being like the most epic reveal we could imagine.
Yeah, and when I did do interviews, I give a fake name. I'm like, just use Bianca. That's the name I use in the club. So it's like, just use Bianca. I don't need, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, and then the perfect thing came along, and I'm like, yeah, this is it.
Perfect.
Because even they were like, we can blur your face if you want. I was like, fuck no.
This
if
is the moment.
we're doing this, we're gonna go balls to wall. Like, put my government name, use my middle name, anything.
Totally. No, it was perfect. And before we get to that, I want to explore a little bit about the world you created, because it is the Kardashians, it's their imagery, it's the stuff they put out, but you create like a whole like imaginative world.
I did.
Of your own.
I think that's great. I've never heard that explained like that. And yeah, 100%. And that's when we're talking about people get it.
Yeah,
they can reference, like we see in the chat, like Dream Kardashian, Hope Fund, like Miss Jonathan. Like there's all these characters and scenarios that I've built. Like in my world, Chris is a drunk who doesn't do enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's totally right. And I think that's with storytelling.
Yes.
And the fact that people really latched on, but that it's believable. Right?
Yes,
You can totally believe North would start Dream Kardashian Hope Fund to help Dream. Like you would totally believe that the Disics are running around Calabasas terrorizing everybody and shoeless with uncombed hair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think people just love that version better than whatever manufactured version the Kardashians try to give us. Like I'll give you the flawed version and they try to give you perfection.
You like mirror what they're doing, but in your way, with your voice and in a way that feels more real.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And it reminds me of actually a quote that I came across while making this Vegas video essay. Stefan Al quotes Walt Disney saying something about fable and storytelling is all about exaggeration and caricature. And that's how the narratives get across better.
Yeah.
So I think that's what people also like about the stories you tell about them, reflecting them. It's that exaggeration it's fun and it's like an escape, and it might be an escape from the hyper curated stuff they give us.
It's exactly that, a break from the perfection.
Yes.
And maybe almost like how the show was season 1 and 2 and 3 when they were just like doing hijinks and getting Chris a monkey versus like glammed up in a living room just saying, have you talked to mom? Oh my God. You know what I mean? So yeah, that goes back, gives them a little more, I think it puts the fun back in, because you know, towards the end, Kardashians weren't that fun because it's very serious.
Yeah.
So I think it does put the fun back in. And then of course you have the savagery, the sarcasm, and like, you know, like the truth telling, but like in a fun way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You cut through to that too, those truths.
Yeah, exactly. Like Scott dating these kids.
Right.
We all know it's inappropriate, but so let's just make fun of it and and enjoy this.
Humor is like a great way to cope with the anxieties of real shit, real problems. And actually with those moments in the family, you're able to find the comedy in that, and it's naming what's wrong, but it's in a way that people can like find that release too.
Exactly. And I mean, it's not always easy. Like the Tristan stuff is just like, again, like how many cheating jokes can I make? It's cheating number 10. Like sometimes I'm just like, oh, sorry, touch my mic. But sometimes I'm just like, God, I don't want to do this. Like I was telling her the other day, like Kim's Met Gala outfit, and people were like, what do you have to say about it? I'm just like, what can I, she's just wearing all black. I don't know what to say. So sometimes it gets a little bit like, oh, here we go. But, or like when they're going through a rough time, like Kanye and Kim divorce.
Yes.
Because North is a real person. So I can't really I have to be careful with some of the jokes I made about, like when he was having his meltdown on Twitter, I had to find a way. But the good thing about North is I construct her to be so self-centered and so about the brand that I can always bring it back to her, always bring it back to the brand.
Yeah.
Like I can have her emancipate herself. Like, you know, who do you want to live with, North, when the divorce? I'm living by myself. I made her completely emotionless and not emotionally invested in anybody or anything that's going on.
That's really interesting too, because it's a great out when those things happen and it gets a little too, the challenge is kind of too much. And it's hard to know how to deal with it with her being a child, but also the family deflects using their brand too. So it's a way that brand creates a space for that distance.
Yeah. Well, look at Kim and Kanye divorce and they're like, stream Donda. So like,
exactly.
What's the divorce? I want divorce Donda. Like, so they kind of lean on that too with, you know, deflecting or like, you know, Tristan or whatever they're going through something. They're like, good Americans having a 40% off sale. Put it, and like you can hear Chris, put it in your stories. You know they're gonna be watching it.
Totally.
Kylie's pregnant. Kylie swim. Like it's just like, yeah, it's the default. So I've had North kind of, and I think that's the good thing. And I think what the Kardashians know, I'm mimicking them.
Yes.
So everything is about, like, even the Jordan thing happened, and I was like, you know, the Kylie cosmetic collaborations, Jordan is 90% off.
Yeah, yes.
Stuff must go. Like, I've like everything. So I think that's another reason the audience like can identify it so fast, because they're like, oh, this is so Kardashian. Like when Tristan and Lamar were kind of going back and forth in the comments.
That thing, yeah.
And I was like, Chris, how fast can you get a camera to Calabasas? Because you know, like that's, I mean, they're people, they feel things, but I think also there's a business mind.
Absolutely.
Specifically when you have a Kris Jenner behind you, you can just, I mean, even when like Kim got her thing in Paris, right?
Yeah.
They had footage still for like coming home for the first time, even though it was like on a little probably like handheld camera.
Nostalgic camera.
Yeah,
nostalgic camera.
They still recognize their public figures, and they've given their life to us, so they will always give us like a little bit of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
they still go to work.
Yeah, they still go to work.
Totally. Were there any storylines, incidents in the media that were especially fun to be inhabit North's like mind for?
That's a good question.
To render,
anything about Scott? Scott's the easy target.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott's the hardest for me to write about is Kendall, because she's so boring.
Yeah.
And I mean that in the nicest way. Like she, you know, reality TV people, you have to have a certain personality.
Yeah.
And she's so boring / like normal.
Yeah.
I have nothing. I don't like making fun of her modeling, because that's like her livelihood. And I don't want to like shit on the only thing she does, even if she doesn't do it that well. So I'm like, girl, I'll just leave you alone. But the Scott stuff, because it's so easy.
Yeah.
I like doing Scott. My favorite to do, but I can't do it often, but Corey. My Corey posts crack me up. Like,
your Corey posts are great.
They're so good. But I don't get to do them often.
Yeah.
But like when he tried to whoop Penelope, like I'm gonna try to reference that any chance like even the Met Gala, he was holding on to his waist, and I wanted to post it like he's taking off his belt. But it is a copyright picture, so I'm like, fuck.
You gotta work with that too.
Yeah, I gotta be mindful of that type of stuff. So I don't use copyright pictures.
Wow.
Because it's I'm so visible, high visibility, that you'll get dinged. Like on Instagram, they don't, if you don't have permission, you'll say you don't have the right to use this, they'll take it. But if you do it so many times, that's when like the penalties. So Instagram's, they're assholes. So you have to be very careful and very mindful. So
totally.
Yeah.
I feel like I have more questions around just what your experience has been navigating Instagram, these mediums, your commenters, but I guess we'll see what comes up naturally.
Yeah. I mean, I put it on Facebook and I neglected it because I was like, nobody's here. And then someone messaged me like, don't forget us at Facebook, people on Facebook. So I was like, okay, for the aunties, I will put it over there on Facebook. And then Twitter, I used to use Twitter to live tweet the shows.
Oh, smart.
Yeah. So I have a following on Twitter. So, yeah, just different, like you said, different mediums have different usages. And sometimes there's stuff I won't post on Facebook because you won't get it if you're not on Instagram, or like Twitter's unique because they don't really come at you for copyright pictures like that.
That makes sense.
So I can do some stuff over there. So yeah.
It's interesting that Twitter's a little more democratic that way.
Yeah. I mean, Twitter lets you post porn.
Yeah, true.
Like you're scrolling like, what is this?
It's like the Wild West.
Yeah.
Totally. Who are your, like, do you have any characters in your world of the Kardashians that you're most fond of? Is it North?
Well, obviously North.
Yeah.
Because North is like a little bit of me, Kim, Kanye, Kris Jenner, all like wrapped into one. Like sometimes when I write her for her, I'm like, oh no, that sounds like me. I gotta change that a bit. But North is my favorite, obviously. And my second favorite, probably Rain.
Mm-hmm.
He's really fun to write about because he's such a wild child. Definitely going to juvie, but he is a delight to write for, because that kid, like, and I have to like pull myself back because I feel sometimes I'm like, fuck, I'm really going in on Courtney and her kids. Let me calm down. But that's, if you all are wondering, that is the reason for that, is because on the show, Courtney and Kim have the most conflict.
Yes.
So it only makes sense for North to have the most conflict with Courtney herself.
Yeah.
With the adults, right? With Courtney herself, and thinking the kids are like, ugh.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rain is, Mason's like disappeared on us,
Yeah, he
FYI.
has.
But Rain, like when he does his like thing, when he's in little Scott mode, it's the fun to write about.
Yeah.
But just at kids in general.
Well, and that's the essence of really good storytelling is conflict.
Yes.
Finding where that tension is.
Conflict,
Yeah.
and you need an antagonizer. So I've made Courtney my antagonizer. Norse antagonizer.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I do like writing about Miss Jonathan.
I love your Miss Jonathan.
Everyone loves Miss Jonathan.
Yes.
Except for Miss Jonathan, which is okay. But writing for her has just been the joy of my life. It really has. Because it makes me laugh.
Totally.
Like, it's so funny.
It's so funny. Well,
Yeah.
that's a common experience we had with doing Kardashian social media accounts. Jonathan blocked me within like 3 weeks of running my account before I had any followers. I don't know how
bitch.
Totally. And I actually think Jonathan's funny, and I don't have a lot of shade to throw at Jonathan. There's shade to throw, but I don't. I never did, but like Jonathan couldn't handle it, even though he deconstructed.
Well, I think like Black trying to block me too.
Yeah.
I think what it is, well, it probably is my content. Let me not lie to myself. I was gonna say the comments, like when they tag other people.
Yeah.
When people tag them, because, and I'm okay with getting blocked. Like if this makes your social media experience better, whatever. But I'm like, these are just characters. Like if I met you in real life, would I call you Miss Jonathan? Not out loud. Like I have respect. Someone wants to hear about the Malikas. So okay.
Oh yes.
The Malikas are fun too. That happened because I noticed people cannot tell the difference from Malika and Khadijah.
Yeah.
Or if you throw Khadijah in, people are like, what?
Yeah.
Like Khadijah announced her pregnancy and people are like, she's pregnant again. I'm like, this is not Malika. Right. So it's just easier to call them the Malikas because no one really knows Khadijah. So,
and that was a way to satirize the audience too, and the way they're receiving these people in the public
eye. Yeah. And Malika was once Chloe's assistant. So it just made sense to make her Norse, make them both Norse. So yeah, the Malika, and twins tell me all the time that happens to them all the time. People don't know their name. I have twin god sisters, and they're Lisa and Louise, and I still can't really tell them apart. So I'm just like Lisa Louise, like whichever one answers. Lisa Louise, Lisa Louise, Lisa Louise. So yeah, no,
twin experiences are really interesting.
Yeah.
I heard rumors that Kylie's having twins, and that will be its own interesting thing for the Kardashian brand if it is twins.
Yeah.
And that'll be fun for you.
Someone did mention Mason is getting close to legally allowed to have social media account, just saying, yeah, and that's going to be a wild ride.
That will be.
That is going to be magic because he's going to do so many inappropriate things.
He's blown up the spot so many times. Absolutely. And
he'll be smoking weed and forgot to press close friends.
Right. Right. No, he's a little wild card.
Friends.
And you were talking about this last night, how and then we should get to the experience of being in their simulacrum. But what you said that their growth as a brand kind of tracks social media. I talked a little about that a little bit in the video thing, but you were like remembering like Chloe Lamar, Twitter was big. Like what do you remember of that growth?
Because I remember when I got Twitter and like people were like, my first Twitter follows like Rob Thomas. Like the people that only the celebrities that had it, but I remember Chloe had it when she went to Miami.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm just figuring this thing out. So it was just there. After she left Miami is when she got with Lamar.
Yeah.
And I think that was like the sweet spot of the series.
Yeah.
Because if you remember the Lamar and Chloe wedding is when they went to an hour format.
Yeah.
And so Twitter had just gotten hot. So you can tweet about the wedding, And so they just went up from there. And so as social media, specifically Twitter, because Twitter's like a real time thing, that they kind of like grew with that. Because we were talking last night how like if there was Twitter when like Real World was popping, like they would be our social media stars today.
Yes.
Like even the cast of Love Island, I hear they go into like 13 followers, they come out and they're like 5.5 million. You know, I'm exaggerating, but you know.
No, totally.
So
now reality shows are like machines for building influencer accounts.
Right. And that's why when we see housewives of whoever actually, you know, they'll be their season one. We're seeing this with Wendy on Potomac. Season one, she was like, I'm a doctor, I've got this degree, I'm on CNN. Season two, she's trying to put out candles. So it's like they just think I've got to use this publicity. This is great marketing. This is a great attention. Like, what the hell can I sell? And this bitch is like candles. So, and that's what the Kardashians found
Yes.
out, like, oh, because they used to have blogs.
Yeah.
If you remember, where they would post old pictures and put like their names in the corner of the picture.
Yeah.
So I think they just were like, well, we're on TV. What do you eat? Jeans? Okay. Underwear, makeup. What? Kendall, okay, you're going to go model. Got it. So I think they just utilized that. And I mean, sweet spot, got so lucky.
Yeah.
Because if we didn't have social media, I don't know if the Kardashians would be as big.
They would not.
Yeah.
I really don't think they would.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. And they made sure to be present as a new platform came out, and that like virality that they brought to it. And then the platform, like it just exploded.
Yeah. And someone made a good point. Kim was jealous of Kylie's Tumblr. She was like, it's like her soul.
Yeah. I remember that.
This one Kylie was like cool. Like she had a good Tumblr.
Yeah.
She was hanging out with Jaden Smith and Pia Mia.
She was like the cool girl.
Yeah, she was rocking beanies and doing her goth thing.
Yes.
Man, those were the days.
She's been like full of phases.
Yeah.
Just a constant evolution. And what do you observe of fanhood? Like, so one thing that's interesting is people will sometimes say we're fan accounts. We're not fan accounts.
Yeah.
That's just for sure.
Fandom. We call it stan because there's we're fans, I think.
Okay.
Stan is a whole nother culture. Like stan culture is dark. Like every fan base has a stan culture that you hate. Like the barbs, you have the barbs, and then you have the stan barbs that will like fucking find your address and put it on Twitter.
Yes.
And Nikki's not gonna do anything because that's a whole nother story. But like, so I think Kardashians have fans, and then they just like every fan group has this one small stan them that's very scary.
Interesting.
And I think the stans are the ones that can find no fault.
Yeah.
Or like are completely ride or die, defend anything.
It's almost like an ideology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But and they have those. They have some hardcore stans. Yes. They're like, the fuck. But I think fans like you and I, we can enjoy them and still acknowledge some problematic areas.
Yeah.
Which everyone has. It's not just them. Like, and everyone has a problematic fate. Like I listen to Chris Brown. I'm trash. And I'm not giving him up. Sorry. But so it's just like that. Yeah. Like I acknowledge they wear braids and do all this other shit, but I'm sorry. They're here to stay. They stay. Shantae, you stay. But yeah, so their fans are super loyal.
Yes.
I don't know the buying power of their fans because they report their own numbers. But the fans are super loyal. The stans are super scary, and that's just it's like Kanye has the same. Everybody has that mixture of like fans that are normal, and then the stans that you're like, please relax. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's crazy. They're really just reality stars.
Right.
Not to take away anything they had done, but like that is like their meat and potatoes. Like I'm a reality star.
Yes.
A personality.
It is the essence of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And what it means to be famous in their way in this current moment.
Yeah, they're just like Bravo celebrities, as they call them, but they just have gotten so much higher visibility because of their high profile relationships.
They're so amplified.
Right. Like if NeNe Leakes would have married Kanye, it'd be the same thing for NeNe.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? But they just, they know how to pick really, really good relationships that positions them well. Much like J-Lo.
Yeah.
J-Lo, we're getting off topic, but J-Lo, same thing. When she was a fly girl, she was dating Kenan Thompson. Allegedly. When she wanted to do music, she was dating Diddy. Like just smart dating, I guess we call that.
And now the current thing she's in right now, that's like recycling of the past.
Well, she's like, I don't need anything now. So I guess I'll do it for love.
So you feel like it's real?
I think it's real / there's a little bit of her not wanting to be alone / trying to stick it to A-Rod. But like you said, the devil you didn't say this, but I said this on Twitter, the devil she knows is better than the devil she doesn't.
Yeah.
So and I'm sure she's at the age where she's like, I don't want to fucking meet anybody and have to date. Ben, what are you doing? Let's just do this thing.
And like the people love it. The people do love it.
I think she loves it, the people.
Yes, exactly.
Jennifer's back, you guys.
The layers of like loving it from being watched and like knowing that they're loving it.
And then she'll have a movie out.
Right.
Next month.
And I think there's something that people find relieving about the fact that we name kind of what's being engineered. We name the systems that seem to underlie these stories we're being told. Like you'll make jokes as North about there's going to be a brand or and I think people do enjoy that about my content too.
Yeah. Or like when Ariana Grande got engaged, I was like, I can't wait for the next engagement. Because it's like, we all know eventually this is going to end in divorce. But yeah, they've had North just call out the stuff we already know, but in a playful, fun, like way.
It makes people feel like they're not consuming the pop culture passively. There's a way to do it more actively and critically.
Yeah, and have fun with it.
Yes.
Like we were talking about the seriousness of Kardashians, or even the seriousness of the stans.
Yes.
They kind of suck the fun out of our like pop culture experience, or like, you know, conspiracy theories with the Kardashians is really fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I keep it fun.
And the fact that you've gotten this feedback, I've gotten this feedback that people who don't even watch a show keep up with our stuff.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
I mean, the other time, like I stopped watching years ago, but I still keep up. And honestly, if you stop watching, you're not missing a storyline. It was just about our Courtney and Scott getting back together. Like, it started to get a little stale. So I think they enjoy our content because we do have like new, fresh stuff and entertaining and more thoughtful things going on.
Totally. In a less passive way. Yes, indeed. I just saw that note in the chat. So we can talk about Kardashian fatigue a little later. Let's talk about your experience to finally debut.
Okay.
Your identity.
Yeah.
In the best
Do you just want me to start? Or
yeah. What was it like?
It was surreal because like it's kind of like what we're doing here, but there's a lot more people around.
Yeah.
So basically went down there. Well, it went to LA, and then I had to quarantine because it's like peak COVID, quarantine and test. And we were in a winery. And so it's just a gang of fucking people. And I sat down by myself, and they're just like, when they come in, just stand and wait, which I felt so fucking corny doing that. Like, it's just awkward for me. And I always feel corny. Like, this shit's corny. So when they came, I was like, it was just weird. So they came in, and Kim goes, oh my God, Nori's Black Book. And then I go, I said, Kim Noel Kardashian West. I couldn't remember Chloe's middle name. So I was like, and Chloe? And Chloe was like, wow, full name. And I was like, I feel like the biggest nerd once again. I was like, why the fuck did I say her full name? And I couldn't remember Chloe Alexandria at the time. And I was just like, hey girl, and you? Look at you. But yeah, so we sat down, we had lunch or whatever. But again, there's producers and camera people, and they don't tell them what to say, but they facilitate the conversation.
Yeah.
Like they'll say, oh, let's talk about the Corey post, or didn't you guys say you like that? They're like, oh yeah, let's talk about that. No, they did not style me. They didn't give me glam. Rude. But they looked gorgeous and beautiful, of course.
What was that like seeing them embodied when we always see them on screens, and being fan accounts or whatever we are, we're absorbing them so much through the screen.
They looked really, really gorgeous. Chloe specifically took me aback for how beautiful she looked. Not like I didn't expect her not to look beautiful, but like her eyes were piercing. To the point now I'm like Googling, has her eyes always been this color? But they were really beautiful. And but I will say I had such a familiarity and comfortableness with them because I write about them so much, and I am overexposed probably. So seeing them in person was like cool and like, whoa, but I wasn't like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Because I see you guys all the time.
Yeah.
And I have to write about you all the time. So it's it's almost like just catching up with friends.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think they have that effect on viewers in general. Like we all kind of feel like we know them. And then especially doing such work around them, it must be so intimate.
Yeah. And so I didn't want to act like a fan because I didn't want them to treat me like a fan.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Not like they say they would or wouldn't, but like, because like the first question in true Kim fashion, get to the table off the bat. So is there anything you ever wanted to ask us? And I'm thinking in my head, like, bitch, you called me. Like, what do you want to ask me?
Right.
But I was thinking like, no, because it's never in my wildest dream. This was never a scenario that I thought of. And that sad part is I had a week into, I had time to think about what I was going to say. And I still really couldn't come up with anything. Because to your point, you feel like you know them already.
Yeah.
So it's like, what would I ask you? Yeah, exactly. So I just asked the obvious question, like, how do you take a good picture? Like, if you met Michael Jordan, you're going to ask, hey, how do I shoot a jump shot? Or how do I dunk the ball? So you meet Kim.
Yeah.
How the fuck do I take a good picture? That's all I
That's
need to know.
That's her expertise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was really nice. They're really funny. They're a lot less rigid as they appear to be. Like we were talking about, there's such a perfection.
Yes.
like they're always wearing the right clothes, wearing saying the right things, but like they're really just like normal girls chit-chatting and gossiping and laughing and stuff. Kim cusses a lot, which is comforting. But yeah, and then like getting mic'd up and like, you know, it's just you're on it's like it's not one of those shows you think you can go on.
Yeah.
It's not like you want to act on the Kardashians one day, or I'd love to be on SNL one day. It's like a show about a family, very specific.
Yeah.
So it was like crazy getting mic'd, and like all the producers, if they had on a bodysuit, I'd be like, "Are you wearing Skims?"
Yeah.
Is this Skims? Of course they were not, but yeah, it was a dope ass experience, and I love talking to them.
You were kind of like the liaison between the fans, the public, the audience, and then the show and the world of the show. You like were kind of like represented all of us in their world, and actually you're the voice of North, this character you made of theirs that is in their family. That you just were this bridge in this really interesting way.
It was so interesting because they were all like, we thought it was someone in our camp, we thought it was one of our friends, because it's so accurate. Even though in the moment I was a little overwhelmed, I should have been like, can I have an example? But they basically, you know, North's personality. But even I look back and I wrote a joke about Stormy having a cooking show on Hulu. And then it came out that they were gonna go to Hulu. So I'm like, oh, maybe that's another example they probably couldn't tell me at the time. But like, it's just wild to be so accurate. Because I used to always say to myself, like, if the paparazzi ever caught North smiling and having a good time, I'm fucked. Because I built this whole story about her like not into anything and not being this jovial child. But luckily it's never happened. Luckily, because that's not her.
You're really attuned to whatever it really is like in there. And because I watched the show, and I'm really good at people in general, like picking up on their things. That's how I'm able like to kind of predict someone's behavior, or like kind of write in the way they would do it or something. Because I told Kim, like, you're judgmental, so that's why. And I was like, you're a little judgmental, no shade. She was like, no, I am. Like, so that's why North is so judgmental. So it's like, it's made up, but it's not made up. You get what I'm saying? No, totally. And they were clearly very amazed by that and intrigued by it, because they talked about it in the scenes on the show.
And everything has a rhyme or reason. There's nothing that's random. Like, so it's all thoughtful, and I think they appreciate that there's rhyme and reason. It's not just some girl that you know what
like
I mean, bullshitting. Exactly. I'm like, I'm watching you and putting it in North. Like, of course North is gonna like hate Courtney's guts. Like, Kim, you hate Courtney's guts. Like, of course he's gonna criticize the Dissent kids because you criticize all your siblings. Like when they went to Japan, you guys look like clowns. Like, where do you think? Because everyone's like, oh, she's Kanye's child. I'm like, Kim's not like some angel over here. So it's just that. I just did that.
Sorry. Is that the sec? Okay, should we turn it off really quick?
Do you know how to just like press the icon?
Yes.
Just quit.
Can we talk about that interesting? Well, no, actually, before I get to this, so what was it? Did it feel like you were in a scene? How did it feel to have the cameras on you?
It did and it didn't. Like, we have a light kind of like what we have here, but there's like a camera guy sitting there. And it's funny because I'm sitting waiting, and the guy's like, "Are you nervous?" And I was like,
"Yeah." A voice from the side.
I was like, "Yeah, I can throw up right now." He's like, "Oh, they're really nice." So it did feel like a scene that was filmed, not like they gave me lines, but just it was like mic you up, sit here, when they come in, wave, and stuff like that. And then it felt it was a controlled environment. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Controlled environment, which is interesting because I think Baudrillard might have called it a controlled reality.
What do you mean controlled reality? Like they still had like their bodyguards were there, but not like, you know, not near me,
like hovering.
Not like, hey, but like
they were like around.
Even when we hugged, they asked if they could hug me to the producers. Like, are we allowed to hug her?
Oh,
because it's COVID. So they probably were like, can we hug? Even though I was like, you were just at a Halloween party I saw on Instagram, and now you don't want to hug me. I'm getting a hug.
Right.
Or like, it was really cute. We were at the winery, and Chloe, they took our order or whatever, and Chloe asked the producer, do we have to drink to be here? And they, oh, honey, you're so cute. You're a Kardashian.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You're filming your show. You don't have to do anything. But they were like, no. And so they got like Diet Coke, and I got water, which I thought we were going to get drunk together. I was really disappointed. But after they left, I drank with the producers.
That's
or
cool.
this crew. They let me sit and drink.
The crew knows all the secrets.
Yeah, they do. I think that's why the crew was mostly the ones like, we thought it was someone who worked for us because you would write stuff about stuff we didn't even know about yet. And
oh my gosh.
Again, I'm still thinking like, what the hell are they all talking about?
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Because the crew really is like the structure of this world, I think.
Yeah, and the crew were the main was like, it's so accurate.
Yeah.
Da, da, da. So
wow.
Yeah.
And you mentioned to me when we just talked about it after that they looked really comfortable. To them, the cameras didn't exist, or that's the sense you had from them.
Not so much the cameras didn't exist, but they checked in with their like produce. Like I said, like how Chloe was like, do we have to drink to be here?
Yes.
Or like they'll mention something and that producer will be like, what do you guys think of that? You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
To get them to elaborate or something like that.
Oh, so the producers kind of like moved along the storytelling.
Sometimes they'll move on the conversation, or they'll say, yeah. They're like, oh, what about, tell them about the Corey pose, the dancing.
Oh.
And they're like, oh yeah, we really do like that one, and da 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 da. So
the structure is provided, but then they go.
Exactly. Or they'll say, we got to go to the next location, or they'll be like, Chris is calling, we can't be late, we've got to go to the next place. So yeah, so it's controlled, and we got to do our own thing, but it wasn't like this private, intimate lunch, like just us three. But yeah, I mean, we're shooting a TV show, so.
Can we talk about the phone call?
Which one?
Like calling to talk to North and like
the
process of it being
please.
Answered. Okay, yeah,
okay, so here's the real juicy part about it. So I'm sitting across from Kim, and so we're talking, and she goes, let's call North. And that's when I freak out internally. Like, love Kim and Chloe, but I'm like, North could have just showed up, and I've been like, so I'm like, we're calling her, we're fucking calling her. So cut to the show. I didn't realize till I watched the show that she was calling Kanye.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? You were calling Kanye? Because they didn't pick up the first time.
That's so interesting.
And the second time, it wasn't like Kanye was like, hey, I'll give you to North. The second time, because North had to call us back. You know, she's busy. And it was just North. So I didn't know she was calling Kanye to get to North, which was cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, she calls North. And I'm like dying. And North's eating ice cream. At like a cool 12 o'clock in the afternoon on a Monday.
Oh my God.
And so she's like eating ice cream. She's like, North, remember I told you I was gonna go meet Natalie today? Because Kim's like, I told her I was coming to meet you. I don't think she gets it. I'm like, well, she's 7, it's fine. And I'm not on TikTok, so she's probably like, fuck her. So she, this is Natalie. And North's just eating ice cream, not even looking up at me, just, why are you wasting my fucking time? And then she's like, can you say hi? And she's like, hi. I was like, hi, sweetie. Or I was like, hi. And then nothing. And I was like, your ice cream looks good. Nothing. And then I look at Chloe, and I was like, hates me. And Chloe's like, hates everyone. And so I was just like, this is so great, because again, if she was some bubbly, like nice kid, I would be kind of disappointed, or I'd be like, oh, this isn't my character. But it was like to the T, like not interested. I'm not even gonna appease you because you're with my mom. Because usually, it's when you're kids and someone's with your mom, say hi to Miss So-and-so, hi, Miss Jackie.
Yeah.
No, she was like, hey girl. And it was almost like, are we done here? And then the phone got passed around to all the kids.
Wow. Not
to talk to me, obviously. To talk to Kim, and then like, hey, Kim, hi, Rain, hi, Mason, and all that. And I was just like, oh, this is so dope.
Wow. And so the attunement continued. It didn't rupture because North reflected some of the character that you
absolutely.
Yes.
All the kids kind of did, to be honest. But yeah, that was really cool that they were just chit chat. So much, they were talking so much. Chloe was like, all right, hang up on them. Like, well, let's get back to it. But yeah, FaceTiming with North was great. And then I later learned that, which is even more Northwest, I later learned that North did not remember me, which was amazing. I love that. Because I was talking to Kim, forgot what we were talking about. And she was like, oh, North wanted to know why her face was on this account. Because she was on my account. And North saw her looking, and North was like, what the hell is that? Like, why is my name on there? And so she's like, I've explained it to her, and I've even read the Saint ones, and she thinks it's funny. I'm trying to describe her to you. And I wrote back, didn't we meet? Like,
right, exactly.
I could have sworn we had a whole FaceTime. And she's like, yeah, but she doesn't remember. I'm like, I love that North is like, I don't remember meeting this.
She's like, I meet a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah.
North's like, you know how many people I meet, Mom? Who the fuck is this? So that was just another like cherry on top of my North cake. Yes, North, give me nothing. Play me dust. Like, who? I've never heard of you. So I thought that was just delicious.
It is, but one day she will become more cognizant and be aware that someone built a character, a really loved character around her, and that's going to be an interesting part of her fame coming of age.
Yeah, it is. And I can't wait till me and North like get together at Naboo and she's like gives me all the tea and like, bitch, what was going on in Wyoming? What was this? And where were you? What were you doing? So yeah, I can wait, but like it will be interesting when she's like, I mean, I was so embarrassing. I told Kim and Chloe, like, can I please come to North's 21st birthday party? Because I was like, I told her you should have North's 21st birthday party at Tao.
Yes.
And then of course, like a pathetic ass person I am, like, please let me come. Like,
you have to be there.
Yeah, I was like, please let me come. And I was like, I said, I'll document it. Like I document stuff now. I'm just like, please let me come if it's at Tao.
It would only make sense.
Like,
it would bring the narrative full circle.
Like 50 something, I don't care. Like, we're going to North's birthday party at Tao.
If Tao still exists, but
I'll shove a $100 bill in a waiter's mouth just for nostalgia. I'll tell the waiter first. Well, he'll be in on it.
Like, get his consent.
Hey, who am I? Who am I?
It would be like a recreation.
Right.
A la Kim's 40th.
Maybe Rain will do it. Rain will definitely do it.
We can count on Rain to do it.
Rain will do it.
Totally. And what was it like to watch the show back when you watched it later on?
Oh, I hated it.
Yeah.
I don't like watching myself do things or listen to myself.
Yeah, it sucks.
It does. It really sucks. But I was interested to see what pieces they would keep.
Yes.
But it was just really weird. First of all, I didn't think people would be that interested.
Yeah.
Like maybe like, oh, that's cool, but nothing like, oh my God. Like even the day of the filming, I told Chloe, like, I'm really surprised people give a fuck. And she's like, are you kidding me? Everyone's like loving this.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. The attention was new for me, a little overwhelming. I'm not gonna front. Like it was like the best day.
Yeah.
It was a little bit like and then I got really drunk that night and accidentally followed David Diggs on Instagram because I was being like a weirdo and like stalking from North. And I was following 11 people and one of them was him.
Oh.
I have 1 million followers. So they probably were
right.
like, what the fuck? Why do you follow the Kardashians and like someone from Hamilton? So I had like, someone texted me like, I see you started following the family and David. I was like, shit.
Oh my God.
But
they notified you.
Yeah, but all my family, a lot of family people came to my mom and dad's house and we had pizza and we had like a watch party. Cool. It was hard because my segment was at the very end. So you had to sit through all that Tristan and Chloe IVF shit. But it was cool. And it was like a not full circle moment, but it was like, wow.
Yeah.
Because I've had this blog for a cool 7 years.
Yeah.
Make it 8 now.
Yeah.
So sometimes I just was like, I guess this will just be like a mixtape that will never go mainstream, that people will just be like, oh yeah, just listen to that. And then finally, because I would see other Instagrams pop that are takes less work, I will say, than mine. And I'm like, I don't fucking get it. Like my shit's funny and you're just photoshopping yourself. No shade, but like you're just photoshopping yourself in a picture. You're just a good graphic designer and somehow you're getting opportunities. I don't understand, but yeah, it felt good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I remember you mentioned Chloe saying something to you like, don't stop, like don't lose your voice.
Yeah. She was like, just because you met us, don't change. And I was like, oh girl, it's gonna get worse. Oh bitch, it's getting worse. But yeah, so they really, really like it. And they were really supportive, like just like a badass writer, like what do you want to do?
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that they were so like, this is so cool. That really helps. I mean, even if they didn't like it, I'd still do it. But it's nice to know that they're in on the joke, like they get it.
Yes.
And they're really good at laughing at themselves.
They have to be. I think it's part of their professionalism, their professional veneer.
Well, it's like I said earlier, they're reality stars. Like they're not, Mother Teresa or like politicians or anything that needs to have a certain look. I mean, you're a reality star. It's supposed to be fun and pop culture is to be mimicked and made fun of. It's all theater.
Yeah.
So they get that for sure.
I think to be so successful what they do, that's a prerequisite. They have to understand that they're being watched and that's the idea. They reproduce themselves in so many ways.
Exactly. And it kind of behooves them to cheer on the people that are kind of not keeping them relevant, but like
you are though.
Yeah, kind of like keeping their name out there and da 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 da. So like, I mean, some people will say Kim just posts stuff so Nori's Black Book can post it. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do appreciate it when she does.
Throws the little nuggets.
Exactly.
They want to be memed. I think there's a real self-awareness and consciousness in what the content they put out and how the internet receives it. And that's how I think you ended up on their radar. You're the best one out there.
Yeah, and it's like Saturday Night Live. Like to be portrayed on Saturday Night Live is huge. So it's like that type of thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's how you know you've made it.
Yeah, I've compared myself to Saturday Night Live. Yep.
Do it.
Yep. So yeah, it's the same vibe. It's like, oh my God. Like if you get made fun of by Nori, you made it, you know, some shit like that. So, or if I like, even when I like drag people in the comments, they're like, yes, drag me, Nori.
Right.
So yeah, it's like a badge of honor type thing.
Yeah, and that goes into like the philosophy of comedy and like how it does feel like an honor, and there's something like legitimizing about that when everyone can be in on the art of it.
Exactly. Versus feeling attacked.
Yes.
It's like a collective thing.
Yes.
It's like, Chloe, you know, you have style issues. Kim's called it out. Let's just make fun of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Kim, I don't make fun of Kim a lot either, because it's just like Kendall, like she doesn't do anything quirky, or she doesn't have like funny things about
exaggerate.
Her. Yeah, I mean, Courtney's funny and has funny things. Same with Chloe. Even Rob, I can find stuff. Kim and Kendall are like the hardest people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of difficult.
That makes a lot of sense. Oh shoot, I think we're running out of time. So I had more things to talk about. We can do it when we're done with this and just shooting. Maybe we should open up for questions in the final few minutes. Okay. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Of course.
Yeah, NATALIE. I have you too. Oh my God, just a breath of fresh air, like a wind of fresh air. Thank you so much. I put in the comments, you know, that lots of our discussions have been so serious, you know, and it's just, you know, that's part of the fun as well. But it's just been, I've been sitting here just laughing and laughing.
That's so good.
Thank you so much for reminding us that this is fun, that this is light. Yes, of course, it's really important. It's really deep, but it is those things at its core too. So yeah, just so great. Let's you know, you've had such positive comments here, but would anyone like to ask a question? Just put your hand up and don't be scared.
Thank you, Meredith.
I'm trying to think if there's anything from that day.
Yeah, totally. And if there's anything else
that they didn't style you, because you did look very much of a one with what they were wearing. Yeah,
well, I knew somebody was gonna have a half up, half down, so that's why I wore my hair like that. I put on a little KKW. Interesting enough, I had KKW beauty on my lips and my eyes, and I had the Malika and the Chloe palette, and I had a little shimmer.
That attunement.
Yeah, I told Chloe that, and she's like, "Oh, that's why you look so good." I'm like, "Girl, I bought this from Marshall's." It was something. But yeah, no, they didn't style me. And I remember we took the picture, and I asked him obviously how to like pose, and then when we took it, and I said, "Whatever you do to you, do to me. Like, let's not play these games." You're gonna Photoshop it, cute, Photoshop me. Like, I'm not one of those girls that's like, it's gotta be natural, body positive. No, fuck that. Cinch me in, smooth my face, I don't care. I think there's one question.
Yeah. Do you want me to read this question out? I've been doing that all along.
Okay.
So, Serenity, do you guys think the Hulu show will be shot differently than Keeping Up with the Kardashians? Do you think that depending on how they shoot it, the tone of your pages would change?
For me, no. I'm still gonna make fun of them. But I think, I don't know, because it wouldn't make sense to have the same format as E and just move it to Hulu.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna have to figure something out, but I can't call it. I'm trying to figure it out and I don't know.
The Hulu show, I think, has been mysterious for a lot of people. There's been a lot of speculation. We watched, my sister and I watched old episodes of Girls Next Door as research for something this week, and really realized that the Kardashians follow such an E structure of like multimedia and editing. Like, it's very like resonant of E. So I'm sure the style will change somewhat for Hulu.
And the reason for that is back in the day, Kardashians and Girl Next Door came on back to back.
It's so interesting to think about that. I didn't know that till recently.
Because I used to just watch Girls Next Door, and then someone was like, "You gotta watch the Kardashians." I was like, "Oh, fine," and then I was like, "Yes." Yeah, but I don't know. I hope we get to see more of their businesses.
Yeah.
Like, let's get out of the living room. I can't take out any more glammed up in a living room asking that someone talk to mom. Have you talked to Kim? It's really just been bouncing from living room to living room.
It's been very interior.
Yeah. So at least like their businesses or something would be nice.
I feel like they'll do something like that. And I will be taking the same kind of takes and whatever they bring us medium wise. I think it won't be a hard transfer for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least you.
We've got a hand up from Gemma. Gemma, go ahead.
Hi. It's great to see you both. It's so fun to have this conversation. I guess my question is like about how you guys, since there is so much constant content that you're kind of, and you're always both responding in real time. And I'm kind of, you know, just in awe of that, but also it's like, cause it's a hard job, you know, like, cause I, you know, recently started this thing with my friend and with Phoebe, who I presented with, and it's like, there's this constant barrage of content and like, how do you integrate that as part of your practice? Cause it's like not really on your schedule. Like you kind of have to be at the whims of the things being posted. And I just wonder like how you guys integrate that.
You're hitting on something that I was hoping we would talk about. Kardashian fatigue.
That
It's
is
real.
so true.
Yeah.
What you're saying, where I'm more on their schedule. Like when they canceled the show, it was the day before my birthday. So I'm like trying to get turned up. Like I'm like, all right, I'm time to drink. It's pandemic birthday. So I had to pause like my birthday to write that statement to mimic them because I couldn't wait too much longer. And so I'm like, God, I have to now I have to write this. So I think that's so true. Like every time I think I'm going to just fucking chill, like something happens. I'm like, oh my God. Or if I'm out of town, like North's birthday, I was in Vegas one time for a bachelorette party and I had to like get up early and like escape. So yeah. And it's luckily because I'm so good at what I do, it's not that strenuous or I'm not like, but there's moments like the Met Gala, like Kim's look, I didn't really have anything to say. Cause I'm like, what is there to say about this? That hasn't been said already.
Yeah.
So there are times where I'm like, I don't want to even post about this, but people are asking, so I can't force myself.
Yes.
But yeah, there is Kardashian fatigue sometimes, and I'm like, I'm not posting for like 2 days. I need a break.
Same experience.
Or there's times where they're quiet, and I'm like, I have nothing to post because you're not doing anything.
Totally.
So I think the fatigue, you fight the fatigue, or you fight the life interrupted with just trusting in your talent, and you can just knock it out. I mean, sometimes it's annoying, but.
And that's where the cheat code piece comes in too, where it does help to mirror them because there's a strategy to when there's a lull and when there's activity. So if you're mirroring that, it does help the engagement, but it's tiring to have to do that.
Yeah.
I'm over it, but I still do it because I want to deliver the good stuff.
Yeah. Most of the time I'm enthused, but like,
no, it's tiring.
There's some times where I'm like, oh my God, another thing.
Yeah.
Like when the Kanye stuff was going on. Because I thought in the pandemic it would be very quiet, and it was quite the opposite.
Yeah,
and I was like, well, sit down. We're in a pandemic. How do you guys have this much drama? But yeah, but I enjoyed overall. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, you just have to adapt. You do adapt. You develop like some structure to it, some strategy, but then also a fluidity to what they throw at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it always seems like around my birthday, there's some like weird shit. Or when I used to write reviews for the Kardashians, they always premiere around my birthday.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, God, can I just enjoy? Or like Thanksgiving, I always go to Vegas for Thanksgiving with my family. And that Sunday I would have to like write a Kardashian episode before we did anything. So my world revolves around them and writing reviews and writing this. So.
No, totally. I think my partner is still in the chat, and like there would be times where she's talking to me and I'm like, stop, I'm writing something. Like I just have to finish it so I can like be present again.
Well, and it's weird too for me because like in my emails, people call me North or Nori.
Oh my God.
Even though I signed NATALIE.
Yeah.
So it's
like that entrenched.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Someone else has their hand up.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We've got a question from Roberta, and it'll have to be the last one. I'm really sorry. It's so sad. Go ahead, Roberta.
Hi, I'm not sure my video is not working really well. I'm so sorry. It's just showing my background. So I wanted to ask how sort of like I'm very interested about the way we talk about the Kardashians in media. And my question for Natalie is, I'm very interested in somehow, there's a lot of internalized misogyny, and like, what do you think? Like, do you think there is power in sort of like speaking from the point of view of a child, of like not having all that baggage of this kind of like sort of like hated in your mind, sort of like you can kind of like shed that away? Like, what do you think about that? But thank you anyway for everything. You guys are amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I never thought of that, but now you mentioned there is power in talking as a Black child, a little Black girl specifically, and I use that to my advantage. For example, because I'm Black and Nori's Black and Rain is white, I can constantly make these jokes about him going to jail, and no one's gonna like think any of it. They might even root it on. But so there's like a lot of things I can say when I speak through North, or a lot of things I can comment on the Kardashians because it's North talking, versus if I was like me, or like how you do. Like, I'm sure you get some criticism from people.
Totally.
The stands will come for you, but like the stands don't come for North. North can say Poosh is a waste of fucking time, and everyone would be like, yeah, girl, go off. But if like you were like, Poosh is just this, people were like, you're a hater. So there's definitely like some power in like North being this little Black girl that gets to talk about whatever she can tell Kim your braids look ridiculous, or tell Kim you're jealous because I have edges and you don't, you know what I mean? And so, and she gets away with it. So I love that point of like empowerment and speech, and like the places I get to go with North that I wouldn't normally get to go as an adult woman or any other ethnicity.
It sounds like she's a child taking in the world from where she's located, and you make the most of that.
And it was important for me, and I told Kim and Chloe this, I didn't take her innocence from her. Right. Like I cuss a lot, but I'm not gonna have North cuss. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna have her talk about sexual stuff or like adult things. She's just gonna have an adult air about herself. And my kid's very literal, and kids, they say what well, we know North. She says whatever she wants to say. So
thank you.
All right. Oh my goodness. Thank you both so much. That was a real delight, heaps of fun. And I had not thought about the writing from a child's perspective either. It is something that creative writing teachers tell people not to do, because it is so difficult. So well done on that as well.
That's likes it helps.
You're just a great writer. You're a great writer with a great imagination.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. Well, you're both great writers and great, and MJ, you're a great presenter.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Thank you for doing this, Meredith.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure and everyone else's. So we're now going to talk about ways forward. Maybe, I'm going to bring everyone and anyone. I've had a few people having emailed me or messaged me saying, what are we going to do next? Is there going to be another Kimposium? Thank you both so much. I'm going to just give you a big clap. Thank you. I'm sorry for moving so fast. So I want to thank Pia Marchetti for the genius artwork that they provided. We've been enjoying that artwork all over the place. I want to thank MJ Corey, without whom I probably wouldn't have even done this Kimposium, the sequel. And that's because I did have such quite a lot of awful feedback for the first Kimposium. It was in the dark days of Kardashian scholarship and understanding of the Kardashians, and I even had death threats. So it did frighten me, and I thought I'd never do it again. So thank you so much, MJ Corey, for really encouraging me to hold this one. I want to thank Maureen Senatore, absolutely tireless. You all know her. She's been emailing you and really handling all of the lots and lots of the organisation. Thomas Ryan, who you just saw briefly, for his beautiful event management. Sebastian Jenner, who says he's no relation, but I don't believe him, for all the beautiful technical support. Eliza Kania, who did lots of the social media and actually did the sort of doctoring of Pia's images to make them, you know, to make them relevant to each week or each day, and to the lead up in the building. Hayley Gutteridge, thanks for writing press releases, and Baljinder Goman, who isn't here, but he did really help me think about, along with MJ Corey, Bal really helped me sort of think that I could actually do this again. And finally, to the Provost of Brunel, Rebecca Lingwood, who is very, very, very supportive of kind of wacky projects like this, which don't quite fit into the university agenda. And you all met her on the very first day. So they're my thank yous. And yeah, and of course I want to thank all of you, because it's just been brilliant. I can see you all now. It's finally, the videos have come up for me, and I think you should all give yourselves a round of applause. And please, Maureen and I will be in touch about the critical reader. We will not leave a single person out. We'll be in touch with all of you, and it might be that some of you would like to try to edit one of those journals, put together theme edition, whatever's best for you and your career. Right? I'm very much, especially those of you who are early career academics, I'm very much about supporting you in whatever ways you need, because the university is a pretty vile, patriarchal, unfriendly place. So especially for all of us, we should support each other. Yeah, so that's it for me.
Can I just say also a golfer's clap for Meredith Jones as well for running such an excellent Kimposium. Of course, I think we've all learned a lot, and I know Seb and I have certainly learned a lot and seen a lot over the last couple of days as well. So that's good. Well done, Meredith.
Thanks, Tom. It's been such a pleasure. Good night, and I'll see you on Nori's Black Book or on Kardashian Colloquium.
This was so cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.